The new year. A time for boundless optimism and hope that the year to come will be better than the year we left behind. It's time for new beginnings, and I think there's no better way to squander this opportunity than to subject myself to the whims of the randomizer. I mean, alternatively, you can look at this as a way to get over the late January blues, in which case I can't think of too many better ways to do that. Whatever floats your boat. A new year doesn't necessarily mean a new set of rules though, so we'll keep things as they always have been. I'll get 3 anime delivered to me on a silver platter from a random anime generator that'll then give 3 episodes to see if they can catch my interest enough to see through to completion. My only restraint is that I'm not going to be spending all my time watching One Piece, so we'll be keeping our options down to 1 to 2 cours in length for my own sake. Other than that, I mean, everything's fair game, so let's see what the new year has to offer me first. What does it mean to dream? I know I dream every night, and my nightmares are full of hauntingly bad anime CGI, but that's kind of beside the point. To dream is to be human. We all have them, and it's those dreams that move us forward and help us look towards the future with a certain confidence and hope. However, for as much as dreams drive us forward, what does one do when met with the reality that said dreams may never come to fruition? How does one move on from a dream? It's questions like this that serve as the hook for the 2009 Madhouse sci-fi series RideBack. Our protagonist, Rin Ogata, is a promising young ballet dancer who suffers a devastating injury and consequently decides to give up on her dream of ever making the big leagues. Eventually, she finds herself involved in an underground circuit and a mysterious motorcycle-esque technology known as RideBacks, where she can now put her former ballet skills to good use. Given the genre of the show, this obviously pisses off the government, and the plot continues on from there. I really love it when a show can nail that first episode hook and shorten its elevator pitch down to a single scene. For RideBack, that comes in episode 1 when Rin jumps over a bridge in her newly acquired RideBack, and there's the sequence where you can just see the glimmer in her eyes return as she finds a new reason to keep going. It's that kind of rekindled fire that I certainly resonate a lot with and fall hook, line, and sinker for every time. I'm certainly a sucker for shows that explore broader themes through their genre framing, and RideBack sets it off quite nicely to do just that. Outside of that, the production is reasonably solid, character animation is consistent enough, and the overall character writing is pretty decent. Rin makes for a much stronger MC than the typical protagonist from this era, and the side cast is sufficiently able to not derail the story too much when present. I find it hard not to draw comparisons to Line Barrels of Iron from a couple months back, but even then this show largely eclipses that one in almost every regard. However, the one thing it doesn't exactly improve on from Line Barrels is its CGI. It falls into that same pitfall of being frequently reliant on its CG team to render out the RideBacks themselves, and while the overall plot knows not to linger on them for too long, some of the extended race sequences can certainly wear at your patience. That's particularly a problem when episodes 2 and 3 largely focused on an underground racing circuit for these machines and obscured the underlying espionage plot for later down the line. It's not quite as glaring an issue as it was in Line Barrels, and the characters alone compensate to a degree, but it does make my job difficult as I have to extrapolate a lot from the very little information I have. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it gonna make me want to watch Eureka 7 all over again to cleanse my palate? Really hard to tell. It's not a particularly hidden secret that the anime community has really fallen in love with the rom-com as of late. As a general rule of thumb, one of the best ways to predict how a genre is going to progress is see what tropes people are growing tired of and extrapolate a solution from there. In the case of romance anime, a market saturated with climactic confessions and will they won't they's quickly developed into skipping all of that and getting right to the juicy stuff. It would only later turn out that authors that have never had romantic relationships don't know how to convincingly write arcs for someone who does, but the stupid ease for which this subset of the genre proliferated wasn't going to be stopped that easily. 2021's Taisho Otome fairy tale is a story about pessimist Kamihiko Shima, who, in a bad twist of fate, was disowned by his affluent family after getting onto their wrong side and into a car crash which claimed his mother's life. Luckily, as it turns out, the best companion for a man who doesn't value his own existence is a young girl sold off by her own family to be his wife and pay off their debts. God, I am getting too old for this. While no amount of overly saccharine pandering quite washes down the bitterly overt taste of that premise, it does help to numb the pain a bit. Its characters and jokes are relatively inoffensive, and the show does find some legs through its themes of finding meaning and connection, even when the world seems to have abandoned you. That was the one thing I enjoyed the most about my Dress Up Darling before its plot stalled out, and this one also seems to have what it needs to explore those ideas at least somewhat. Even through some of its flatter character writing and questionable premise, there's still some comfortable self-vibes that can make it a very fun time if you want to just lose yourself in the world of an isolated Taisho era noble and his, female companion. And actually, considering the time frame, I guess it was perfectly acceptable. So I don't think that makes it right. If you've stuck around here a while, you know that I'm an absolute sucker for yokai stories. I've always had a particular fondness for the supernatural, and there's something about these little boogers in particular that has always drawn me compared to their more discernibly evil Western iterations. A good tale of the supernatural can tap a part of the human experience that hits a little more personally than a standard spooky ghost, and it's stuff like that that keeps me coming back. That being said, yokai and spiritual entities are so ingrained in Japanese culture that you could find these kinds of tales all over the place, and as expected, not all of them are all that great. On the surface, 2016's The Morose Mononokean certainly doesn't instill confidence. Produced at Pierrot Plus in the waning years of its association under that name before becoming Studio Signpost in 2019, The Morose Mononokean doesn't exactly impress with its weaker animation and heavy reliance on CG, but I kinda get ahead of myself. Hanai Ashiya is a high school first year who burns those valuable first days of his high school career in the infirmary from a yokai problem instead of making good first impressions. Inclined to find a way to cure himself of his fuzzy problem that no one else seems capable of even acknowledging, he seeks the help of a local exorcist, Haruitsuki Abeno, who helps to solve his problem. Only problem is that exorcism rush jobs aren't exactly cheap, and so Ashiya is brought under Abeno's wing to help cover for his debt. Back to the point, Mononokean does itself no favors with its bare-bones animation and frequent use of admittedly not all that bad CG. Its character and monster designs are also a little on the simpler side and can struggle to leave much of an impact, and if I see one more high school setting, my eyes are going to roll so far back into my skull that they're going to come full circle. Still, when it counts, the show is able to stabilize and find solid ground. While certainly not groundbreaking, the episodic plots do hit a touching chord that makes these kinds of shows work. As opposed to something like Liyuu and Roji, its protagonists do synchronize well and strike up a nice balance between Ashiya's naivety and Abeno's coldness. This leads to a solid dynamic and structure that gives the series more breathing room as it expands its cast and ideas. God, if I had a nickel for every show on MELL that takes on yokai with pretty boys, I'd have a lot of nickels, but one of these is bound to do it right eventually. Right? Maybe I should just bite the bullet and watch Natsume's Book of Friends instead. While it sells itself well in the first episode, and certainly comes off better than some of the other series I've watched here, a slow back 2 episodes makes it hard to get a real read on RideBack. The end result is a muddled pitch that could honestly go one way or the other. Ultimately, I decided to err on the side of caution, and RideBack ended up going into the drop list. The CGI was ass, and the racing plot felt lacking substance, ultimately making finishing the series a little too tall in order. Might be worth coming back to later, but I've just got better things to be spending my time on now. Getting over some of the more questionable elements of its premise, Taisho Otome Fairy Tale ends up stabilizing to a pretty decent series with a cute, slower style that will likely resonate with anyone looking for that. However, with that comes fairly flat characters and dynamics that look to mostly just throw more characters at me instead of developing the relationship it already has. What I'm trying to say is I'm sure it's a fine watch, but I'm looking for a little more than just fine, and with that it finds itself added to the drop list. Even if its CG work can be a little rough in places and its overall art not much better, the Morose Mononokean packs enough of a punch in the writing department to justify seeing it through to the end. Its colorful depiction of the underworld is a blast to see, and its charming characters hold it together surprisingly well. Will my time be better spent watching Natsume's Book of Friends? Most certainly, but if you've already done so and need something to tide you over before Season 7 drops, this one more than scratches that itch. With that, I hope you enjoyed and got help narrowing down your planning list. Remember to like and subscribe to be notified when the next episode drops, and let me know down below what your thoughts on this month's offerings. You can follow me at the sites down below if I ever get the link situation sorted out, and until I see you next, remember to stay salty.